Okay, so welcome everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order for the regular council meeting for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. And we will begin by rising for O Canada if you're able. Thank you. Okay, so as you'll notice, we're down a few folks today due to illness and travel. So we'll miss their presence at the table, but we shall truck on because we do have a quorum this evening. So I'll hand it over now to our clerk, Shelley, to do the roll call of councillors.
From District 1, Councillor Sean Sampson sends his regrets. Councillor Michael Digdon, District 2.
Present.
District 3, Councillor Melanie Sampson sends her regrets. District 4, Warden Member Kent.
Present.
District 5, Deputy Warden Brent Sampson.
Present.
All right, thanks, Shelley. And just want to say welcome, another house full here this evening. So it's great to have folks back in the gallery, and to those watching at home, we're glad to have you as well. We have, I guess we'll start by checking to see if there are any items to add to the agenda, or changes to the agenda. I do have one change I need to propose, and it's to defer the in-camera personnel item to the next meeting when the CIO can be present. So there was a matter that we were going to be discussing there, so we'll defer that item. And I also wanted to add the NSFM policing service survey, which is a message we got from NSFM today, and I just wanted to speak to briefly at the end of the meeting. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? For a motion to approve.
I'll make that one.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion on the agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, so we have two sets of minutes to review, one from the April 24th regular council, and then one from the April 24th public hearing. Both of those sets of minutes have been provided in advance, so I'd look for a motion to approve the regular council meeting minutes, please.
I believe under correspondence action required, section A, there was one nay on that, if I'm correct.
Okay,
It wasn't myself, if the clerk could check that.
okay.
It's on page 6 of 7.
And that's on the all the regular minutes, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Deputy Warden, you said it was items,
It's under correspondence action required and item A.
okay. Okay, so
I
there was,
may be incorrect on that, but I thought Councillor Sampson may have voted nay on that.
okay, so I think maybe we will need to defer the acceptance of the minutes until we check that out, and
Okay.
then take care of that at the next meeting, just so we can be very sure of that. So then the next set of minutes would be the April 24th public hearing. Are there any errors or omissions to those minutes?
I'll move to accept them.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is carried.
Madam Warden, for the minutes presented, can't we accept the minutes as presented with the,
Because we don't know if the change needs to be made.
I know, but with the exception of that,
Just ask the clerk to review it,
yeah,
that one.
Sure, yep, if
Yeah,
you want to
I'm
make the
fine with
motion.
that.
Yep, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So it would be to accept the minutes from April 24th with a review of correspondence item A, recording of the votes. Okay,
So moved.
so moved from the
I'll
Deputy
second that.
Warden, okay. Seconded by Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on those minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. So we're going to move into the next section on the agenda, which is a question period. And for those who maybe haven't been following council, we added 2 question periods to our regular council meeting. One that would come before our committee reports, so you would get a chance to ask questions about items on the committee reports before those committee reports were approved. And then also a question period for later in the meeting as well, which would be kind of restricted to the items on the rest of the agenda after the committee reports. So we'll open it, and I will say that both of those question periods are for 10 minutes because we have 2 of them. So instead of our usual 15-minute duration, we have 2 10-minute ones during our regular council meetings. And just want to say also that suggestion on format came at the suggestion of a resident. So if anybody has any suggestions for format improvements, please don't hesitate to make them to us. We love to get them. So I'll open for question period now. If there are folks watching online and would like to call in, the number to call is 902-226-9885. And or if there are folks in the gallery who would like to ask questions on our committee reports, you're welcome to do so. Our Committee of the Whole report will include the National Accessibility Flag Raising. It will include the Maui-Omi Friendship Gala sponsorship, the minimum bids for tax sale properties, the VON week. There's several grant requests on there, as well as a discussion on Airshot pedestrian sidewalk project. And of course, the motion passed regarding the Pondville Beach Provincial Park at the last meeting. So our Committee of the Whole meeting, we had all of, motions related to those items. Those motions are taken forward now to regular council to be ratified. So, and then of course, we do have a bylaw policy committee report as well regarding our budget policy, and we have planning advisory committee report as well. So, okay, so I'm not hearing the phone ring, but we'll just give it another minute.
can you play your Jeopardy music?
I know, we need some tunes. You listen to me slurp my tea, I apologize. The mic's probably picking that up really well. Okay, so hearing no questions, we'll move on from question period, and we'll jump into our committee reports. So over to you to do some reading for us, Deputy Warden.
Committee of the Whole Report, May 2023. The committee met on May 8th, 2023. The committee discussed raising the accessibility flag for National Accessibility Week, May 28th to June 3rd. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to have the staff raise the accessibility flag for National Accessibility Awareness Week from May 29th to June 3rd.
All right, motion's been made.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion's carried.
The committee discussed the Maui-Omi Friendship Gala sponsorship opportunities. The Committee of the Whole unanimously agreed to recommend to council to purchase the $600 Friends of Maui-Omi sponsorship level.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion's carried.
The committee discussed the minimum bids for tax sale properties. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to accept the recommendation of the Revenue Manager and CFO, and that council authorize the Revenue Manager and CFO to sell property numbers 003666722, 105-34461, and 105-34471 for a minimum acceptable bid of principal only, and if these properties do not sell for the minimum acceptable bid, to sell these properties for half the principal only amount, and if these properties do not sell for half the principal only amount, to proceed and sell these properties for any bid.
Motion's been made.
So I'll second that motion with the,
Yeah, to move it to discussion?
to move it to discussion, please.
Great, okay, motion's been made and seconded. So is there any further discussion?
So yeah, again, it's on record that I disagree with selling property for a lot less than what's owed, and we went back and forth on this, so it has been moved and approved, I guess, but just for the record, that I do disagree with selling off the property for a lot less than what was owed on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nate?
So one nay vote on that particular item.
The committee discussed the grant request from the River Bourgeois Mariner Society for the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $1,500. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to defer the grant request from the River Bourgeois Mariner Society for the Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $1,500 to the June Committee of the Whole meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the request be referred. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? That motion's carried.
The committee discussed the grant request from the Cape Breton Fiddlers Association for Type 4 Regional Health General Grant Funds in the amount of $2,000. The Committee of the Whole unanimously agreed to recommend to Council to defer the Cape Breton Fiddlers Association grant request to the June Committee of the Whole meeting and have staff reach out to the proponent to gather information regarding what events are taking place in Richmond County.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, so that's not worded as a motion. I don't know that we made a motion on that one. It's worded differently because I think we also wanted to go back and get some more information, is what I'm recalling. So we can, and I have
So-
started that process, so, yeah.
Basically just consensus on that.
Yeah, it was more of a consensus piece, so, yeah. Great, thank you.
The committee discussed Victorian Order of Nurses Week. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to support the request from VON to celebrate VON Week by using blue lights on the municipal office building, proclaim VON Week from May 21st to 27th, 2023, and further make every effort to recognize VON Week on the municipal website and local media.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. I do want to mention that there is a lovely VON flag flying out front today as of around 3:30 this afternoon, and thanks to Glenda Kipp and her team for coming to help out with that today. Any other discussion on that item? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried.
The committee discussed the grant request from the Richmond Wildlife Association for Type 3 C1 Physical Activity Grant Funds in the amount of $172.50. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to approve the grant request from the Richmond Wildlife Association for the Type 3 C1 Physical Activity Grant Funds in the amount of $172.50 and be allocated as follows. $172.50 from the District 2 funds.
I'll second that.
All right, thanks, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion's carried.
The committee discussed the grant request from the Lewisdale Fleur-de-Lis Seniors and Pensioners Club for the Type 3 C3 Sponsorship Grant Funds in the amount of $500. I move that council accept the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to approve the grant request from the Lewisdale Fleur-de-Lis Seniors and Pensioners Club for the Type 3 C3 Sponsorship Grant Funds in the amount of $500 and be allocated as follows, $500 from the Regional General Funds.
I'll second that.
thank you. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
The committee discussed the Arishat pedestrian sidewalk project. The committee of the whole unanimously agreed to recommend to council to defer the Arishat pedestrian sidewalk project to budget deliberations.
Okay? So that was
So-
a consensus as well?
Yes,
Yep.
consensus as well, but I'll second it if required.
No.
I don't think it is,
I
but
think we're good. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
The committee discussed the infrastructure needs of the Pondville Beach Provincial Park. I move that council accept the recommendation from the committee of the whole for council to draft a letter with input from the Save Pondville Beach Provincial Park Group to the MLA and the minister to address the infrastructure needs of the Pondville Beach Provincial Park.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion on that item? Okay. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried.
This concludes the committee of the whole report for the month of May 2023, and I move its adoption.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Councillor Digdon. All right, any further discussion on the committee of the whole report? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried. So the next item on the agenda is the Bylaw and Policy Committee report, and there is, I think, regarding a budget release policy. So back over to you, Deputy Warden.
Bylaw Policy Committee Report, May 8th, 2023. The committee met on May 8th, 2023. The committee discussed the budget release policy. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Bylaw Policy Committee to adopt the budget release policy with the following changes. In Section 4A, remove the wording "cost increases" and insert the word "changes." Remove Section 5A, remove Section 3, and renumber the document accordingly.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. So, any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried.
This concludes the Bylaw Policy Committee report for May 8th, 2023, and I move its adoption.
Councillor Digdon? Back to
Second that.
Councillor Digdon has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried. And next item on the agenda is our Planning Advisory and Heritage Committee report. One more time, back to you, Deputy Warden.
Planning Advisory Heritage Committee report, April 2023. The committee met on April 25th, 2023. The committee discussed recreational vehicles. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Heritage Committee to approve the amendments to the Isle Madame Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw to allow for small-scale campgrounds and recreational vehicles to be used as seasonal main dwellings or seasonal accessory dwellings as of right within the rural general zone and rural resource zone, and to insert company definitions and to remove the requirement of having coverings for all windows to reduce light pollution. Further move that council give first reading and schedule a public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
The committee discussed heritage plaques. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Planning Advisory Heritage Committee to purchase 9-inch by 5-inch bronze plaques and further move to defer discussion to budget deliberations.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. So I didn't make that meeting, so question I had from that, was that because we weren't sure how many of them we were gonna get?
There was the
Deferring
option
it to
of,
budget?
Yeah, and they were the more expensive option.
Yeah.
However, the discussion was there's so few
so
that
few
come
of
up
them. Yeah,
that it
okay.
wouldn't have a big budget implication.
Perfect.
The other options on there was some, I believe it was like aluminum type ones.
Right.
But I thought these sort of fit better with the heritage
With a heritage
designation.
property, you want to have something of
Yeah.
quality there, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah, okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The motion is carried.
This concludes the monthly report of the Planning Advisory Heritage Committee for the month of April 2023, and I move its adoption.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion on the Planning Advisory and Heritage Committee report? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. Thank you very much for your assistance with that, Deputy Warden. Much appreciated. There was a lot going on. All right, so the next item on the agenda, it's noted that there's a motion to adopt the budget release policy, but we did that during the Bylaw and Policy Committee report, so we can just move to the next item. And it is the first reading regarding the proposed amendments to the Almaden Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw to allow for small-scale campgrounds and recreational vehicles to be used as seasonal main dwellings or seasonal accessory dwellings as of right within the rural general zone and rural resource zone, and to insert accompanying definitions, and to remove the requirement of having coverings for all windows to reduce light pollution. So I'll look for a motion to give first reading approval on that.
So moved.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried. Okay, so we're on to new business, which is first item, and I know which was added by our CAO, who unfortunately became suddenly ill today, and so he's not with us this evening, but it's regarding a Richmond County collaborative session and a request to provide lunch, and he has provided a memo that includes some details about the concept. So you may have seen the advertisements already that are out right now for the June 22nd business dinner. So each year, for many years, the Cape Breton Partnership would host a business dinner somewhere on Cape Breton Island. They stopped doing that during COVID. And this year, they're starting it back up, and I'm really pleased to say that they have, worked with our staff here and have selected Richmond County as the location. And I believe that dinner will be on the 22nd of June at La Picasse, and is being advertised already all over the island. And we have a keynote speaker who is coming to speak at that dinner. His name is Doug Griffiths, and you will recall me having handed out his book, I think, at our first council meeting after being elected, because he's probably one of the most inspiring community development speakers that that I've ever heard. And just his practical lessons are really easy to apply in rural communities, I find. But anyways, the point is that while we have him here, the following morning, there is a concept to potentially invite representatives from some of our nonprofit groups in the county to a little bit of a collaborative planning session with the municipality and ourselves for the councillors who would be available to attend, as well as staff, and to just to kind of talk through some of the ways that we could be working together better. That the budget that the CAO has put forward for that is a $5,000 item. I believe that has been included, and that the budget is basically to cover some meals for the folks who would be attending that day. And I believe that discussion has been included in our current draft budget. And I think we talked a little bit about that during our budget discussions, which I know we'll be regrouping on June 1st. But at this stage of the game, I think in order to facilitate the planning, I believe he's looking for a motion, if council is supportive, to approve the requested amount to a maximum of $5,000 to cater a June 23rd Richmond County collaborative session with Doug Griffiths. And you'll notice in the memo the dates are off by a day. It's because everything shifted back by one day. So I will open it for questions and comments. I will answer what I can, but in his absence, I just recognize I may not have all of the details. So.
Yeah, so I think the only thing I'd like to point out to anybody watching or listening, that's the book that he provided. It was 13 Ways to Kill a Municipality, was it?
No, 13 Ways to Kill a Community.
Or community?
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
I guess either way.
I know it sounds really bad, but I swear it's a really good book.
It is a
because
great book,
It
and-
talks about, like, if you want to kill your community, don't provide access to fresh water. If you want to kill your community, don't engage youth, so it really kind of flips how to build a strong community on its head and makes it a little more interesting and provocative, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, it's the same guy.
Great.
The title can be a little off-putting, though, for sure. Okay, so are there thoughts on that? Would folks be willing to support that request for 5,000, or do we need more information, or?
No, I think the only thing that I would like, well, and I'm sure our CEO, he's very thorough so far, so I'm sure he'll cover all the steps and boundaries, is that, you know, it is, again, we are reaching out to members of the public that are, you know, non-for-profit groups
Yeah.
and whatever, you know, or the head of them organizations to engage all of them within Richmond County. So this is not it's definitely not a council deal
No.
per se, like it's not, we
about
get to see
community.
Doug the day before, we can arrange to have him here. So I just, it's for the members of our public. So I just
Yeah.
like that to be known, not so much for council to.
Yeah.
So in saying that, I have no problem with making the motion to have our CAO
To approve the requested amount
to
of up
approve the
to
requisite
5,000?
amount. Yep.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, thank you, Deputy Warden. All right, any further discussion on that item? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And that motion is carried. Okay, thanks, folks. So the next item on the agenda is one that I added because obviously with, you know, in my work with the Nova Scotia Community College, one of the representatives of the Strait Area Campus management team reached out to me last week wanting to talk about the heavy equipment operator lease that they have on Unity Drive to conduct the HEO program. And as you'll recall, last time we approved, like, they've been doing this work on that site for many years. Last time we approved a lease of, I think, maybe 15 months, and it allowed them to get 2 iterations of the HEO program. And it was because there was some, I would say, imminent interest in the property. We were reluctant to go any longer than a 15-month lease, so that, you know, the situation has changed. There's certainly interest in the property, but nothing so imminent. So my suggestion to council at this stage is, because they would like to put a building on the site and hook power to it, which would require a certain amount of investment, they are looking for a 5-year commitment, but recognizing the fact that there's a lot of development going on in the area, and so, you know, an out clause would obviously be, you know, something we would want to have in case things change drastically. So at this stage, would look for comments from council as to, do you have any concerns about going that route? Or, yeah,
No, I think this is the third time, I'm pretty sure it's come before us, and I mean, understanding there's an out clause.
yeah,
Should we be able to, if there's prospects on selling that property, I'm fine with, you know, allowing them a 5-year lease. Technically, it allows them to plan a little further in the future, but I mean,
yeah,
not, but rather than it coming back to us every time, because unless there's a buyer, there's no reason not to.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and again, we're providing training. It's a training facility for
it
the
is, yeah.
heavy equipment operators that, so yeah, I agree with Deputy Warden. Unless we're locked in somewhere where we can't get out, then I have no issues.
Okay, so I would suggest maybe a motion that council would approve in principle to have a 5-year lease with an appropriate out clause granted to the NSCC Strait Area Campus, and also to refer the matter to the Port Hawkesbury and to the Joint Park Commission, who will have to make a decision on that ultimately as well.
Correct.
Okay, so moved.
So moved. Thank you, Deputy Warden.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on that item? Okay, that's great. Next item on the agenda is Councillor Michael Digdon. Over to you regarding question period procedures. So,
Yeah, so I guess, just in the past, we've ran into, you know, several proceedings where, or several of our meetings where our question period became more of a presentation than a question period. So I think, I just like to see that it goes back to where it was. So I think in the past, we brought question period back because we felt there was a necessity to hear from the public and to get the questions. And I think it's probably one of the best things we did bring back was question period. However, I also feel that we have to be a little bit more stringent on the, on how question period is ran, So I'd like to see a little bit more, I guess, protocols or parameters around question period. I know last week, we had question period and we managed to get, I guess, 2 participants. However, there was still participants in the rest of the galley that had questions but didn't get to ask them. So that was a little bit concerning for me that we actually had people left, and because the question period, the time was used up, we didn't get to hear from the rest of the public.
Okay. So one thing I noted regarding question period is we have some details that we always publish at the bottom of our agenda. So in addition to what you're talking about, one of the details that we don't have listed is that you need to identify yourself, which is great when we're all here in person in the gallery, but now that we're offering for questions coming on the phone, we may want to add that, Shelley, to our instructions for question period, because I think we need to know who we're talking to, right? When people are calling in. Great point. So,
Well, and I think to that point, we also have to be diligent in the fact that, if the galley is full of people, it is question period, so it's not
Yeah.
presentation period. So, and it's not to be rude to anybody here or anybody coming for question period, but I think it's rude of us not to give the opportunity to somebody who sat through question period and didn't even get a chance, or traveled from Foreshore or Framboys and didn't even get a chance to ask a question, is more rude than, so I think we have to go back to the basis of, state your name and your question.
right, okay.
So my thoughts on this were, I was thinking about this after. Possibly like if we thought about how the province used to deal with these on the, I'm thinking of COVID briefings and so on. I know that was different dealing with the media and so on, but oftentimes it was one question, one follow-up. Because otherwise, yeah, for exactly that reason, you could have other people that may not step forward until the chair is emptied, and if the chair is never emptied, then they won't step forward at all. So, if there was an appetite to limit to one question, one follow-up, then it may allow the opportunity for more people to come forward.
Yeah, my computer just did that thing again. It's okay, sorry about that, but yeah, no, it's an interesting idea.
I don't know that I'm not comfortable with the one question, one follow-up.
Right.
I think then we're really limiting people to pick your 2 out of your 5 great questions you may have. And again, people who are traveling, and it doesn't really matter, I guess, whether you're traveling from afar or not. We are here to answer all the public's questions. In saying that, I think anybody definitely should be able to reach out to their counselor and get the same answers, whether it's during a meeting or not. If not, I know my constituents can reach out to me, and then I definitely provide them with the information within a day or so. So I don't know that I'd limit it to 1 or 2. However, I do feel that we do have to put a limit. So maybe if you can, however many questions you can ask in a 4-minute period or a 3-minute period, and if you're the only person in the galley, then I don't know that that's even an issue, that we give them 2 questions. But I just feel that we have to be able to accommodate everybody that's here, and I felt that we dropped the ball last week.
Yeah. So we could ask folks to identify themselves if they think they might have a question, or put their hands, maybe we could do a show of hands. But I am kind of recognizing we are missing 2 of our counselors here, and we're talking about a bit of a procedural item. Would you guys be okay with us maybe regrouping, getting some feedback from those 2 counselors as well, and then we could come back?
Yeah, I
with,
agree. It's not something that.
With a recommendation. Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay, thanks. Thank you. And this thing is waking back up, so should be on the go soon. All right, so the next item on the agenda is, sorry, Councillor Digdon, was that enough comment time on that?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, great. So correspondence is next on the agenda for correspondence action required. So we do have a letter, I guess, from the Nova Scotia Department of Public Works regarding the 3-year cost share agreement for subdivision streets. And I think this is essentially a pretty standard agreement. It just sets out the parameters whereby we have in the past, I tried to identify roads that have a joint municipal provincial responsibility for improvement, and knowing that it, is basically stating that we would be picking up 50% of the costs. And again, remembering that that program is really just very specific to certain kinds of work, AKA paving, like almost like a paving only kind of program. So,
Yeah.
sorry, Councillor Jacob?
Nope, I was waiting for you to finish. So upon reading that agreement, I noticed that the paving is 50%. However, any other work being done is at the cost of the municipality. So I think we really, really have to be careful, considering that that could be from,
Yeah,
the paving is fine, but if that, and again, looking through it didn't really depict it, but, that could be graveling the shoulder of the road, that could be a mile long, which
right.
would.
And it's because for that particular program, you'll recall, we ran into this a while back. For that particular program that the province is using, only paving is eligible for it, right? And so that's why anything else would be 100% our responsibility.
But it includes shouldering and so on, from my understanding. I think more what they're talking about is unforeseen circumstances, which may happen, but I think a lot of times we have to rely on Director of Public Works to say,
Yeah.
you know what, there's gonna be some serious water sewer infrastructure here, could be a
Right.
problem. We may run into extra costs so that you're aware.
Yeah.
You know, that may affect the decision-making, whether or not we wanna proceed with something.
Well, it does, but the problem with that is that the province moves forward in replacing or doing the replacement of the infrastructure, and then the bill is submitted to us. I believe we ran into that Whiteside
Well, that
Road.
was a
Right?
piece of.
Yeah, it wasn't a J class, but I know what you mean. It was a situation. like
Right,
that.
and then we end up getting tagged with a, six-figure bill for.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And again,
and I-
not that we could have done it cheaper, however, something like that, we usually tend to put it out to
Yeah.
tender, or we have people that.
But this agreement is specific to J-class roads, so.
It is, however, I still don't see where it shows that, it says anything other than paving, so I don't see where it shows that they're responsible to do the shouldering, which is concerning to me at, gravel at, $300 a ton.
I think, I think we'd have to take it in consideration future circumstances beforehand. We may want to ask Public Works.
Right.
Do you see any issues here? You know what I mean? Do you see any problems with this
Yeah.
going forward? Yeah.
And so right now, all we have is the agreement template. We don't
Yeah.
have an opinion from staff, one way or the other. I don't.
Also, do we need to, nominate a council designate, it looked like at the bottom of the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, they've provided the resolution and.
The very bottom of the agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So,
So you want to nominate one of the councillors that's not here?
well, that's what I'm wondering. Perhaps
It
we
works
should
for me
wait
if that's where you're
until-
going with that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know
it's
if
unfortunate
a
that they're sick and
time-
couldn't make it tonight, but.
Pardon me,
I don't know
Deputy
if timing's an issue on this, that it needs to be. The CAO would probably know how soon they need a response to this.
Yeah, there
Because
wasn't.
normally I would think, it's within District 3,
Right, I will.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't know if they want signatures tonight, one of us can do it.
So my understanding is that it wasn't it was not urgency on this one. And at the end of the day, we are meeting on June 1st as well, so that is a special meeting. So we can discuss the budget and the Canada Day funding agreements, so if we need to add this back.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add that back.
Okay.
As much
so-
as I would like to put somebody's name on that dotted
Yeah.
line tonight.
Okay. Okay, so we'll defer that to our June 1st special meeting. Shelley, if you could make a note of that, that would be great. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, sorry, any further discussion on that? Okay, next item on the agenda is another piece of correspondence. It is the memo regarding Pondville Beach, and the letter is included that the Pondville Beach Group sent to the minister. It is noted as action required, but I think we kind of took care of the action already at our last meeting, unless there's any other discussion that we want to have. I mean, I think we decided the letter would be step one, and I believe the CAO has from the memo, he's met with representatives from the group, and has a list of kind of deficiencies that we wanted to have looked at. So that letter will be well underway now that the motion's been ratified at this meeting. Is there any other discussion on this correspondence we need tonight?
No, I'm just wondering if for those people who haven't heard the letter or read the letter, if it's possible, is that somewhere we can post that within our,
Yeah.
and it doesn't be
Pop it
posted
up
right on our,
social media.
but can it be put, like, is it within our minutes of our council meeting, I guess, anywhere, if somebody went to
Well,
look
it's
for it?
within our our public meeting package for tonight.
Yeah, I have to have your permission to.
Yeah, we could pop it on social media. Is that what you mean? Like,
Well,
for
I
folks to
just,
be able to see?
because it's a huge.
So do you mean our letter or the letter that's provided here?
Well,
You mean the one that we wrote?
The one that we wrote.
Okay, so when we put that together, and which we
Yeah.
will be able to now, right? So, yeah, we could certainly circulate that. It'll be, yeah, that's a great idea. I don't see any issue with doing that.
And like, I'd like to throw in, maybe we can add it to Tellil, since they're,
It might be a little long to put on the
it
screen.
might be a little long to put on scroll, but there's a lot of people that are sitting at home that,
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on that item? All right, so the next item on the agenda is a letter from Tellil Community Television regarding hanging flower baskets. And so I know that this has come up in the past as well, but they're looking for you to place hanging flower baskets on the lampposts that line the Airshot sidewalk, the new lampposts, and that they would also care for them and water them. It sounds like a pretty sweet deal, and the correspondence from Becky was forwarded, because she indicated that they have summer students who could help with that. I guess, I would invite comments from counselors. I do think we need, this letter has kind of arrived in our documentation. I don't see a staff opinion with it in terms of managing some liability, which I think is something we were worried about before.
yeah, so I think we gotta run that through our CAO or through our Public Works guy to make sure that,
So, yeah, so I've, sorry, Deputy Warden,
I was
go
just
ahead.
gonna say, I'd probably be willing to make a motion to give them our support based on.
Yes,
Public Works being comfortable with it.
right, like,
And
it's fine to provide a hanging basket, and
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be fine, but if somebody puts one with a plastic hook and then it falls down and hits somebody walking along the sidewalk, then it becomes a whole different.
yeah.
So
if- If Public Works weren't comfortable with it, they could give us the reasonings, come back, we could have a fuller discussion.
Exactly.
If they're okay with it, there's probably no reason to delay any longer.
Yeah, I agreed.
Okay,
Yes.
so we'll approve this request then conditional on Public Works.
Support.
Or maybe, well, why don't we just say support from staff as
Support
well,
from
because
staff,
that
yep.
would come through Troy.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion would be that council will approve the request for Tellil Community TV to place and care for hanging flower baskets on the lampposts that line the Airshot sidewalk, conditional on staff agreement or approval as well.
I'll second that.
Oh, we need a mover first. So-
Okay, I thought I'd move.
Okay,
Yep,
okay,
yep,
the
yep.
motion's been made and seconded by Councillor Digdon. It's like a tennis match in here this evening. That's great. All right, any further discussion on that item? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, that motion is carried. That's great. That'll allow that conversation to move along without kind of waiting for more meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So, I believe that was the last item on the agenda regarding where action might be required. The next item is correspondence for information purposes, and it is a lengthy letter from the Honorable John Lohr regarding 12-month notice to municipalities. So the province is required to give us 12 months' notice when they believe that there are changes that may impact us as a municipality, either in terms of our resources or our financials. So they've outlined several items in the 12-month notice. Does anybody have any questions on any of those? Okay, so hearing none. I'll move on to the next item on the agenda. And it is unfinished business regarding the Airshot sidewalk project. Now, so this is the project that was proposing a sidewalk coming from the highway here up to the building here and past and over to the school, and then potentially the price on the one coming down as well, the exit. I think the decision we came to at the last meeting was that I would reach out to the president of the CSAP Board of Directors, who is Marcel Cotreau, I believe his name is. And so I've done that through Nicole Sampson-Savory here. So she confirmed that she's sent that letter on to Marcel. I know that there was some time sensitivity around the tenders of May 26th, which is, I believe why we popped this back on the agenda, just in case I had some kind of response on that. So at the end of the day, what we were proposing was to do to do any combination of the work. So there was, I think, 3 options. One option was to do sidewalk only. The other option was to do the sidewalk and paving. And then the third option was to do the paving on the exit. So at this stage of the game, I haven't heard anything back from them, but it's only been a couple of days since I sent the letter. And I do know that some of the contractors have been reached out to, and there does seem to be some flexibility there with the timing. And I do know we also have, been discussing this in our capital plan for our budgeting process as well. Safety of the people using walking those routes has to be of paramount importance. But we kind of also recognize it is mostly folks, who are heading to the school who would be doing the walking there. And maybe that's not even fair to say, because honestly, I don't sit here and look at who's walking up the road. But we know that there's a great deal of use by both parties. So we were looking for some cost sharing on that. And I did, I think Councillor Digdon, you had suggested that we state an amount. I did put 50% in there of whatever combination of those options they may be interested in pursuing. So, so I'm not sure, do we want to have any further discussion about that this evening? Do we want to give it another couple of days to see if Marcel might be able to respond?
Don't think, based on the fact that we're just waiting in response, and in theory, nothing has changed since our last discussion, I don't know that we have anything else to add to it. We have no further detail. Yeah.
Right.
No, I guess the only fear I would have would be the contractors that tendered it. Are they going to, stand by or extend their tender? And if not, then, I do believe part of our discussion was, that if the school still felt that it wasn't, or they weren't contributing, we still thought that it was a project worth pursuing.
Yeah.
I guess considering that in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, but that's where the potential playground is going to go from, when the water park, and I think that was all part of our discussion last couple of weeks as well, right? We included that if the water park goes up there, then you actually have a good accessibility walkway and paved driveway. So I don't know. I think the only problem I would have is that we're at the crunch now. So the question would be, if the French School Board decides not to contribute, would we still be doing this project?
Well, I think what we would be doing might shift, right?
Right.
I think we can only make that decision once we know the answer, though.
Right.
Because
and,
if we decided in theory to proceed without it, they're not going to give us a dime.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're showing your cards and I have no interest in. I have no interest in further discussing it if the details haven't changed.
I guess I partially agree. It's kind of like painting a house, though. If you only do one side, are you going to leave your house only half the color? So I guess with us, the concern is this side of the parking lot, or of the driveway, the roadway with the sidewalk, whereas really the exit isn't really a concern.
Well, I think, I think councillors may have differing opinions
I
about
shouldn't say
that.
it's not a concern.
Right,
It's
yeah.
not a priority. I could probably,
Right.
as opposed to, the left side is more of a priority than the right side, considering that's the side where all the kids are running up and
Yeah,
down and.
I think we would, yeah, like, I think we would agree
So I guess maybe one of the things we could do is ask staff to reach out, and again, we're getting late in the season, is maybe ask staff to reach out and
to,
to the awarded bidders and see if an extension again is.
I think they
already
have done
have.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But-
I think they've received I think a positive response from one.
So further than May 26th?
I would have to double check on that. But at the end of the day, our budget meeting, where we're gonna decide on that 5-year capital plan, is on June 1st anyway, right? So,
Yeah, so I guess I'd be okay in holding this over to our budget meeting.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, technically, things could change for them dramatically tomorrow. You know what I mean?
If we don't get a
One of these-
response,
No,
if
no,
we don't
but-
get a response within a week, then chances are we're not getting a response.
Yeah,
But I mean, even whoever the contractors may be doing the sidewalk project or had bid on that, I mean, they could have an approval tomorrow on something, and then this becomes, nope, sorry, can't do it anymore.
yeah, yeah.
And we
Yep.
can't control that.
Okay. So this is very much, I would like to say, still on the table, but we're looking at a June 1st timeline to make a final decision on
Sure.
if and how to proceed type of thing, so. And does that sound okay?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, great. All right, perfect. And just like on that, and I know there were some folks who had been messaging about, about the CCBF, the Canada Community Building Fund, which used to be known as the Gas Tax Fund, but that's, that name has gone by the wayside. Right now, the county has a little over, about $6.5 million of short-term projects on the books for the $2 million that we have available to us in that fund, right? Or whatever the amount is at this stage of the game. So it's, it is a tricky decision for us to be making but we do think that, I think we were all in agreement that the safety piece was kind of, it had to be our number one.
I think that's what trumped everything. It
Yeah.
wasn't so much as
Yeah.
getting the parking lot, or the driveway looking pretty as,
Yeah, okay.
and I think Counselor Sampson set us up with that meeting because he opened the curtains when all the kids were
He
running down for
did.
lunch.
Which
So
was
it just-
it was a great use of visual supports on his part. All right, perfect. So we'll defer that to June 1st. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the review of action items. Were there any questions on the action items captured? Okay, so hearing none, I'll move us along. So the next item is items added to the agenda. I did have that one item added regarding the NSFM Policing Service Survey. So that only came through in an email today. That's why I'm adding it very last minute. But in my initial review of it, they're doing a bit of an assessment on policing in the province as our Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities entity, and obviously that is likely a response to the the extreme increase in cost and the retroactive pay that has been sort of landed onto municipalities through the RCMP collective bargaining agreement. We still don't know what that's going to, what that final cost is going to be for us in the end. So I know our staff here is waiting eagerly, as are municipalities across the province, to get that information through the Nova Scotia Department of Justice. It's a bit of a complicated contract that we have with the province, and then regarding the RCMP. So at the end of the day, what they're looking for, though, is a bit of an assessment on policing service. And they've asked for each municipality to provide one response only. So it's not that all of us would go in there and provide kind of our opinions. So all I wanted to do this evening, because I didn't get a chance to look at the whole survey, just kind of looked at the instructions today, is wondering if we could defer that back to staff to coordinate a response between council and maybe getting some feedback from our police advisory committee as well, if that makes sense.
How soon do they need a response on it?
I think it's June. It's sometime in June, Deputy Warden, June 20th. So that's why I was kind of wanting to add it
The police
sooner rather than
advisory
later.
meets quarterly. I'm trying to think when the next, do we have that date? Sure.
Yeah, even if we could get some feedback by email from them or, you know. But just, you know,
June 28th, so that's the end of the month as it is. That's when our
Right.
next scheduled. So we may want to do something sooner than that.
yeah, yeah. That's why I was thinking if we kind of make a motion to ask staff to coordinate that piece, you know, maybe, you know, between Troy and, you know, whoever could be making some calls to police advisory committee members or however he wants to handle that.
It could possibly be circulated by email.
Yeah, I was gonna
Exactly.
say maybe just to
And
get feedback and input
Yeah.
from the police advisory committee and then.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to refer this item for staff to coordinate a response to the NSFM Policing Services Survey?
I'll make that motion, but I'd like to add that that it be, I guess, read or presented to council prior to sending it out.
Oh, yes, yeah,
Okay.
for sure. Okay,
I'll second that.
that's been seconded. Any further discussion on that item? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. All right, that brings us to our last question period of the evening. So again, we have a 10-minute question period allocated. And if you're watching online at home and would like to call in, the number is 902-226-9885. One of us will make a sprint for the phone. Again, we're a skeleton staff this evening. I feel like there's not enough hands at the table. But again, that number is 902-226-9885. And this question period is restricted to the items on the remainder of the agenda from after our committee reports all the way down to the end. So, and again, for a committee of the whole question period, that's our question period. That's wide open for the 15 minutes. So, or if members of the gallery would like to come on up, yeah, absolutely. I'll just get you to identify yourself and come to the mic if you don't mind. So, folks, it's over on
right.
this side. Just if you want to sit at that laptop, there should be a,
Oh, actually, there's a
Nope,
little mic right
right
next to
over
right
on
at the
this one.
laptop, I believe.
there you go.
The little white, yeah.
Yeah, that's the mic.
Okay, my name is Tom Stanton. My wife and I have a home on Grand Lake. And based on Councillor Dignan's comment about question period, I might be able to make this really quick.
Okay.
The reading of the bylaw regarding recreational vehicles on the Ilman Dam, even though it's gone through first reading, is there still opportunity for public debate on that?
There will be a public hearing scheduled.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Get ready, because there's gonna be lots.
Okay,
Because
perfect.
the bylaw, as it reads, I needed a lawyer to help me try and figure out what it actually said. And when I found out what it actually said, I had discussions with my neighbors on the lake. And a lot of people have no understanding what that means.
Yeah,
Because it's very convoluting. And I think there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna wanna question what it actually says. So in that public hearing, I think there has to be a lot of explanation. Because I couldn't understand it at all.
if there's anything you'd like to share with us leading up to that public hearing, I would encourage you to do that.
Okay.
And I also want to say that I recognize completely what you're saying about the legalese of some of these, of the more technical municipal land use planning documents. It
Yeah.
can be difficult for people to figure it out. It's difficult for me to figure it out, you know,
Yeah.
so, and it's part of the reason why, although I'm not on planning advisory committee technically, I attend almost every meeting because I feel like I need to, it's the only way I can fully get a grasp of what's being discussed. I need to hear the discussion as well as see
Yeah.
the print, right? So anything you'd like to share in advance, and
Okay.
and you'd be encouraged to participate in the public hearing, that's what it's for. But definitely, if you would like to share information in advance, be happy to receive
Yeah,
it.
like I said, I've had discussions
Yeah.
with some of my neighbors, and there's no, it says this, no, it actually says this, and then we're just kind of doing one of these, and that gonna get kind of messy, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and that's the point of the hearing, right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you might be able to provide clarification on some of those, if you have questions that you're unaware of, or really, we can, you might be able to get clarification through the clerk or John Main or
Yeah,
the
Yeah,
committee
if you want
prior
to email.
to,
Yeah.
Yeah,
the discussion, and then it,
Because the thing is, yeah, well, but for the public hearings, yeah, you can submit ahead of time.
Mhm.
Yes.
Encouraged to,
And when are those going to be?
it hasn't been scheduled yet, am I correct?
I don't think the public hearing on that one's been scheduled yet, because it would go to second.
I think that was
reading
tonight, it was
first.
first reading and to schedule a public
Yeah.
hearing, right? So,
But it'll be publicly advertised as soon as
Okay.
it is scheduled.
yeah.
Yeah.
And after the first reading, there's a public
There's-
hearing, then there's a second
There'll be a
reading.
June
second-
23rd?
Second reading and a public hearing, but I don't think technically,
Tonight, we did the first week,
yeah,
Yeah.
until we,
right?
no, it just says potential June 23rd on the,
Right,
oh, is it? Okay.
yep.
yeah.
So potentially, June 23rd is
Yeah.
the,
Okay,
But once
Subject to
that's
change.
confirmed, it'll be
Right.
publicly advertised, so definitely stay tuned, yeah.
great. Thank you
And
very
it'll
much.
be-
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be encouraged to submit ahead of time, like if,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I mean, specifics.
We'll
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah,
Cool.
perfect.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for your
Appreciate
question. Are there any other questions? All right, well, we'll give it a minute, just in case there's folks listening and would like to call in. Oh, you have a question?
Lisa Boudreau, and I also have a question regarding the change to the bylaw for the mini campground, Almaden. My question is whether or not the policy change for Almaden is in keeping with the norms in other areas of the province.
Okay, so I would look to you as the chair, or maybe we need to get some staff.
It was, yeah, I
input
know
on
we
that?
had discussion about where there isn't zoning yet in the rest of the county, for instance, but oftentimes when this came up, people wanted something that was gonna be consistent, basically going forward. It was started through basically a complaint process here in this zone, so that's being addressed. The hope was that it would be something that would make sense for the whole county and could be looked at when the zoning comes into the rest of the county
Yeah.
through the Plan Richmond.
But in terms of outside of Richmond County, we may have to go back to the planning
Well,
commission for
there-
that information.
There was
Right.
information gathered from other, like EDPC gathered information from elsewhere to try and come up with solutions on that, because it's been
Right,
a year and a half or so this has been ongoing.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, it was before last summer anyway. It's been at least a year, if not more.
yeah.
I think, yeah.
But we can take that question back, Lisa, and get a more definitive answer. And then what we do with our, I should have mentioned this earlier as well, what we've been doing with our question period is any questions that are asked in public, we make sure the answer comes back in public so that everybody gets a chance to see that, as well as the person who asked the question.
So my second question is, what substantiates a mini campground? And is it based on any size of lot, as the old bylaw would apply to any landowner?
Small scale had to do with, I think the final limit was 5 or less, and large scale was above that. However, there is differences based on if some of these are placed there, what you would call semi-permanently, like we discussed, whether or not they were plated, sort of registered and insured, because some of these are set up, especially park models, for instance. I've seen some with a roof built over them, or a deck or so on to that. So they're being looked at as these aren't moving, basically, right? They're considered, I believe it was semi-permanent. They're gonna have to, I believe even at that, they have to provide information on it to the planning commission, because there was some of it that read to do with providing photos and so on, and just the condition of the exterior, and so to deal with unsightly, there was a whole list of things. But the number that was stopped or settled at was 5 or less was small scale, and 6 or more would be considered large scale.
And the size of the lot tied to that?
There was, I don't know that it was, but there was some discussion about distance between them, and the distance between them had more to do with fire safety. He had found, I believe Mr. Bain had found that distance somewhere else, but
But we can,
There was no tie-in to the size of the lot?
there was discussion of that, but I don't know offhand what,
we'd have to double
What the
check
final-
the details, so
yeah.
we can get back to you on
Yeah.
that one too.
because there was talk about how, you know, technically, yeah, a much larger lot may accommodate more spaced out by, quite a bit. Whereas a small little lot, if they were all sort of packed on top of one another, it's a different situation. But I don't know offhand what the final square footages were, or if there is a lot size determination on it. I'd have to refer back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I was just gonna ask, though, if there is, a separation for fire protection, then that would probably alleviate the size of the lot. So if it's maximum of 5 and it's minimum 100 feet in between, I'm just
No, it
picking
was-
numbers.
But it was something like 15 feet or something.
Okay,
It
but,
wasn't-
yeah, so regardless, I guess if it's maximum 5 and it's 15 feet, then regardless, if the lot didn't meet that standard, then you couldn't have the 5, you might be able to have 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
If you
so if you
couldn't-
can only provide 10 feet in between
Yeah,
the,
because your lot wasn't big enough.
because your lot wasn't
Then
big
you
enough,
couldn't
then
meet that standard
then you
anyway.
can't meet that
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so any other questions? Okay, well, hearing none from the gallery and none coming on the phone, we'll move on. And again, to the next item on the agenda, and a reminder that the in-camera session was deferred at the beginning of the meeting, so we will adjourn, there being no further business to discuss. So thank you again, everyone, for coming in, it's much appreciated.